Uh-huh. I just feel like I've been around the block, ripping up fantasy stock, working around the clock. Look at the view from the top. Researching rookies a lot? No, I just be listening to pods. Yeah, one in particular, I'm just a messenger. Let me just pass on the rock. Browning, brunning, pruning, pronouncing ain't what he's doing. What he's doing is not losing, but infusing you with new things. And there's Dennis the Bennett, yeah. The man is a menace, yeah. Building a dynasty, some of the finest things. Promise you won't regret it. Sly as a fox, cultured in pop. Give him his props. Here is a thought, here is a box, and you cannot compare them at all. So don't even try. Careful with the news, but when you use a take, I take up Tony Fire. I mean Dyer, because anyone else is a huge mistake. Whoa, fantasy round table, fantasy round table, yeah. Fantasy round table. Come take a look at the crown, baby. Hey, fantasy round table, fantasy round table, woo. Fantasy round table. Come take a look at the crown, baby. Go.
What is going on, everybody? We have made it to the last and final game of the Week 9 NFL fantasy football season with the Patriots and the Jets. Tonight should hopefully be at least a decent football game, at least two struggling offenses, I guess is the way I'm going to look at it, with probably two struggling defenses as well. But we did get to see a couple of good fantasy and regular football games this weekend. A lot of just really weird shit, in my opinion. Matt, how did your Week 9 start out for you, and how you doing on this beautiful Monday?
Look, tonight is the night. You know, if your wife's been saying, why are you watching football every night? Why won't you watch Dancing with the Stars with me? You can safely watch Dancing with the Stars tonight. Maybe check your phone every 15 minutes or so. You calling this decent just indicates to me how tired you are, because I don't think there's going to be anything decent about two completely inept offenses that are going to be forced to meet for 3.5 hours in New York.
All I'm hoping for is my tagline right there. I just need 12 points out of Damian Harris. That's all I need. And I feel like it's a really tall ask, but look, fantasy
especially since he doesn't get a ton of touchdown looks, so you're looking. Maybe 60 yards and 4 receptions.
Boning me all season long. I'm just asking for one win. I'll figure it out the rest of the year. Just come on, help me out one. At least give me some hope to make the playoffs, and I need it big time. Out of Damian Harris tonight. Let's kick it off here with the Falcons and your Broncos. 34-27 win for the Falcons. Locke, 29 points. Gordon, 3. Lindsey, 2. Judy, 25. Hamler, 15. Tim Patrick, 12. And Noah Fant, 7. If you would just take what the Broncos look like in the fourth quarter the past 2 weeks, you would think that they are a really good team. Why can they not put it together in the first 3 quarters?
Yeah, I don't know if it's play calling or what. Somebody suggested yesterday that once they go through the half and they're down by 21 points, Locke just comes out there with the, no pressure because we suck, and just starts throwing it. Maybe that's it. Kind of a blow yesterday at Albert O. I'm not even going to pronounce it. King of Albert tore his ACL. So that kind of love affair there has been diminished. But it was, best game of the year for Judy. He looked good at times. Hamler really starting to come off. But they just look dead for almost 3 quarters. And then kind of come back and still making too many mistakes, but that's something they're really going to have to get over if they're going to get better, and it doesn't get a whole lot easier. I mean, they're playing the Raiders this week. Raiders are 5-3 in the playoff hunt. I thought playing a lesser Atlanta team was a golden chance to get back to 500 and see if you can make a run on it. Just really never materialized.
The Raiders should be 3-5. They got bullshit wins over the Browns and Chargers. Just throwing that out there. Judy, I think I'll be interested to see come Friday after we're all able to kind of look at this and see with him going up against the Raiders how much we think he's going to continue on this pace. I wonder if it was more of just a Falcons game and why he went off. I know a lot of people are talking about him this week as being kind of a breakout candidate.
Prior to this, he had been pretty steady about getting like 60 yards every game. It didn't really matter, like 2 for 60 or 4 for 60. So it's kind of nice to see him get over that hump. Hamler's looking better coming back. I think they've started to throw it a little bit more. Yesterday, their rush offense was complete garbage. They're
Yeah.
supposed to get Graham Glasgow back. Maybe get that line a little bit better. It felt like in the first half, for an Atlanta team that doesn't have much of a defense, they were kind of crushing in and doing these incredible coverages. And I was a little disappointed. So we'll see. They've had good matchups the last 2 weeks and really only played one out of 3 quarters. Maybe next week we could play 2 or 3 quarters out of 4 quarters.
Well, I will say that since was Raheem Morris has taken over as Atlanta Falcons head coach, they're 3 out of 4. I mean, they've looked better.
Yeah. Well, and they're talking about him possibly getting the permanent gig.
We'll see. If they keep playing this way, he might just end up getting it with Atlanta. Ryan, 22 points. Gurley, 13. Julio, 16. The original Oz, 20. And Hayden Hurst, 13. I mean, the original Oz, whenever one of the other is out, has really looked much better, in my opinion, and engaged, whether it's been Julio or Ridley. What are your thoughts on him or Gage?
Yeah, I think Zacchaeus is the play. He looked really good. He looks good going long. He looks good over the middle. Russell Gage, they were playing the same kind of beat-up secondary. Denver obviously doesn't help when A.J. Boye and Bryce Callahan are game day inactives. Really left rookie Michael Ojemudia was their best defensive back. They were so disgusted with Deontay Harris in the first half that they pulled him for a guy that I didn't even know was on our team. Kind of tells you the secondary issues that we were having. Julio Jones made a turn at the goal line, and you just lost the defensive back from the screen. And I was like, well, that's not a good sign. Gage was the only one that couldn't seem to get involved. We saw Hurst have a decent day. Julio Jones was having a decent day. Zacchaeus looked great going down. I think the shine's off the apple with Gage for me.
Yeah, I'm with you. I like what I've seen out of the original Oz. I think even Powell had a good game yesterday too for the.
He had a touchdown at least.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm with you. I think if I've got to lean one of those guys, it's going to be original Oz. We'll see, obviously, throughout the week how Ridley looks. I mean, there was obviously a shot. It wasn't a great shot. But there was a shot that he could have played Sunday. So I would think, with that being said, he'll probably be able to go this week.
Aren't they on a bye week?
Are they on a bye week this week? I thought they had.
I think them and Kansas City are both on a bye. It's going to be a sad day.
Really quick, if I can get.
All I have to say is I apologize, America, because I finally accepted a trade to get my first share of Calvin Ridley. So that should have told everyone that he was not going to be available, based on the luck that you and I have.
Yeah, I mean, there was someone else that I just made a move for recently, and they sucked as well. I can't remember who it is exactly. Let's see here. Why is this not working?
I'm pulling it up.
Broncos, yes, they are off this week. Their next game is against the Saints in 2 weeks.
I think that was some of the rationale for putting him out, is he has 2 weeks. So, and speaking of which, we'll have time to talk about this, but brace yourselves. Brutal bye week. Atlanta, Dallas, Kansas City. I mean, the Jets nobody cares about, but Atlanta, Dallas, Kansas City, those are some prime fantasy assets.
I would say nobody cares about Dallas either. I mean, they looked better with Gilbert, which we'll get to, but, I take that back. The wide receivers look better. Zeke's still running like shit. But hey, it's okay because I replaced him in a bunch of spots. And again, why I need Damian Harris not to me tonight if possible. All right.
That was a good decision because Zeke did not get to 12 points.
No, he did not. Bill Seahawks, which
God,
I had the Bills picked over the Seahawks.
I know. I thought you picked them on our Friday show.
Let's see. It's probably a sorry no Ohio State Buckeye alum that you picked up. No, sir. Negative. I don't even know who I did pick. Who did I pick up? I don't know. But no. But I did leave the great Ohio State Buckeye, Zeke Elliott, on my bench this week because, the Cowboys suck. But yeah, I did. I had picked the Bills, and then for whatever reason, I went back in Sunday morning to switch out a different game because the more and more I was looking at it, and that team ended up winning, but I was kind of going through my picks. I was like, wait, do I really think the Bills can pull off the win against Seattle? And I was like, I should have just stuck with my gut, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to switch it. I'm just going to switch it. I feel better about Seattle, and sure enough, it looked like, yeah. It didn't, I mean, Seattle
you were almost
back,
golden because they said Saturday night, Josh Allen's grandma passed away and he almost didn't play. They offered him the opportunity to sit it out. And I was like, that would have been information that would have been nice to know Saturday night because you roll into Sunday morning, you're like, I got Josh. Oh, Oh, I see. I have Matt Barkley as my quarterback.
Oh, yeah, I'd have been screwed. In one of my main dynasty leagues, it was him or Baker Mayfield. So I would have been running to the waiver wire to pick up either Garrett Gilbert or Joe Flacco. So I'm glad that Josh Allen decided to play through.
It's a real Sophie's choice there.
Yeah, I probably would have gone with Gilbert, and I don't think he'd have been horrible for me. He wouldn't have been what Josh Allen gave me, obviously. I probably would have lost that matchup as well. But Wilson, 22 points. DJ Dallas, 11. DK, 23. Of course, we talked about it on Friday. This was the David Moore game. David Moore does come through for you with 17 points. Tyler Lockett, 8, and Hollister, 11. The Seahawks, the offense had a lot of turnovers in this. But the defense is the one that is holding this, or is the defense the team that...
Yes. The defense is holding them back.
There we go. That's what I was going for. Go for it.
I mean, we talked about going into this. I'm sure Allen was pumped up, and it was a good matchup. And we've seen them have a decent offense at the beginning of the season. But they were going through a real valley. You're talking about a team that did not score a touchdown against the freaking Jets. And they look like the Chiefs after you give them a round of crystal meth on Sunday, scoring their 44 points, just going all over the field. Seattle has been a defensive team, a lot of Pete Carroll's run, and it's great that they're letting Russ cook, and I like seeing the offense and stuff, but we're at the point where it's a lot of pressure because in that game in particular, it was like, if you don't score a touchdown, you're just going to fall further behind. I think that's where some of those interceptions came. I'm sure they were pressing a little bit because at one point we were in our chat, you were going back and forth like, are the Seahawks alive? Because they were down 24-7. That does a lot of pressure to young quarterbacks. It can have pressure on even veteran quarterbacks, and Buffalo has a decent defense. So if Seattle fancies themselves a playoff team, they're really going to have to do something about that.
Well, yeah, and I mean, it changes the way defenses play. When they know that all you're going to do is throw the ball, it does make it harder to do it because they can just drop back in coverage. Now, granted, a guy like Russell Wilson who can also beat you with your legs, you can't just drop everybody in coverage because he'll still beat you that way, but they still have to make up a lot of yards. And Buffalo's defense came to play. There is no doubt about that. They've looked much better than they have in a couple weeks here as well against that Seahawks defense. Even though they were able to put up 34 points on them, it didn't look like it was going to be that kind of game for a long time in that one. On Buffalo's side here, Allen, 36 points, Moss, 12, Diggs, 20, John Brown, 17, and Gabriel Davis, 17. Singletary had just 2 carries for a yard and 3 catches for 31. Is he quickly becoming unplayable for you?
Yeah. I mean, I know they made a big thing. Pete Carroll even mentioned that they had expected Buffalo was going to try to run and was surprised they didn't run very much at all. But even Moss is the one that's getting goal line carries when they get it, if it's not Allen. Both those guys had rushing touchdowns. Yeah. Singletary, they're just not involving him. For a while he had -1 rushing yards going into the fourth quarter. He started to sort of fade down even before Moss came back. We had mentioned Yeldon starting to get in there, Yeldon catching big passing touchdowns. There's just not enough work in the way they're playing offense to support 2 running backs, especially when one is not getting any of the real red zone work.
Yeah, I'm obviously worried about him. I think we've kind of talked about him fading a little bit here the past couple of weeks, as you mentioned. I'm not jumping. He's on my bench, but he's not someone I'm completely panicking on because I do agree with what you just said. Pete Carroll even mentioned they did not think they would abandon the run the way that they did. We all know the way to beat Seattle is through the air. We've seen it pretty much every week this season. Everybody's having really good passing performances against him. So I do want to see what he does next week. I'm probably not going to start him next week. I'm still starting Moss. I think we all had Moss ranked over Singletary come Friday. I had Moss in a couple DFS lineups because I thought he was going to be better. I would also say that take what you saw out of Josh Allen in this passing game with a grain of salt as well. He has not looked this good since really those first 4 weeks. He's kind of struggled the past couple, and now he looks great again. I think some of that is that get-well defense in Seattle. So Josh Allen, I expect to be somewhere in between what we saw through weeks like 5 through 8 compared to what we saw last week. But it's great to see him kind of bounce back and get to that kind of early MVP candidate he was in the beginning of the season, because he was doing this for the first 4 weeks, and we kind of missed it the last couple. So it is definitely good to see on his side. Next up, Titans and Bears. The Titans win this one 24-17. For Chicago, Foles 21, Ryan Nall 13, David Montgomery 5, Allen Robinson 15, Darnell Mooney 9, Anthony Miller 8, and Jimmy Graham 17. Montgomery struggled again here, did get a concussion. He is still, as last I saw, in the concussion protocol. Are you worried about him losing out touches to Ryan Nall if he does come back this week?
Yeah, it's interesting. Nall didn't have a carry, but he did have 4 receptions for 35 yards and a touchdown. And I think so Montgomery has been getting a lot of the carries, but hasn't been getting a ton of yards or efficiency from that. What's been helping keep him at a RB2 level is with Cohen gone, he's been getting receptions, and he's not gotten tons of yards. Some weeks like 6 catches for 12 yards, but in PPR that boosts your value up. If Nall starts getting that work because he was actually efficient with it, I think it would be time to worry because their run offense is not enough to sustain, to be excited about a running back.
Yeah, I love David Montgomery coming out last year. I think if you can sell him for anything half decent right now before a trade deadline, possibly to like a contender, selling it as, hey, add some RB depth. He had a bad game this week because he got hurt, got the concussion, but he should be back. I would do it. I don't believe in Montgomery anymore. I hate to say that because I think he's got a lot of talent. I don't know if it's the offensive scheme. I don't know if it's just he doesn't fit well in that offense. Whatever it is, he does not look at all like the player that was coming out of college. A guy we've had on the show, and Nick Whalen, is not a big fan of his as well, and he's a Bears fan, and he is not really he doesn't really like David Montgomery. I think at this point, if I could sell Montgomery, I would. I'm not overly impressed, and I'm not really sure that that's going to get any better for him moving forward with Chicago. On Tennessee side, Tannehill 14, Derrick Henry 6, A.J. Brown 20, and Jonnu Smith 11. It's the Corey Davis breakout season over. Finally, the first week we have not seen him get at least 11 points in fantasy. Which, again, should say, 8 straight weeks is pretty damn good, but we finally...
Well, he only played 5 games.
Oh, yeah, you're right. My bad. So 5 games of his season, yeah.
I'm going to chalk this one a little up to being kind of a weird game flow. Tannehill didn't throw that much. Davis got 3 targets. He just didn't get a reception. He actually ended up being 3rd on the team in targets. Ferkser got 6. He got 1 more target than Jonnu Smith. Jonnu just caught his and got a touchdown. So A.J. Brown's still the lead guy there. We've seen them have to throw a lot more than what was happening yesterday. So it might just be a weird game, but it was hard for us to trust and believe in Corey Davis. I just this week got to the place where I had him in a flex spot and didn't feel like throwing up when I saw that name in my starting lineup. And so now this is probably going to set that back a little bit.
Yeah, I've never believed in him. I was hoping for it, obviously. I've never been a big Parker guy either, and he obviously was able to prove us wrong last year. None of us want to see anybody fail. So I don't want to see Corey Davis fail, but it's more of I don't believe in him in that offense. And I've kind of always said that. It's not that I don't believe in Corey Davis' skill and talent.
We don't want to see a lot of people fail, but I'm not going to say there's no one I want to see fail because there was a failure that warmed my heart on Sunday night.
I will say that I just don't want to see some players do good specifically, I guess. I'll put it that way. But yeah, I've always stated that I thought Corey Davis was just not on a team that was good for him. We've seen what A.J. Brown does with them, and he's an absolute dog. That dude is good. Some of the catches or runs after the catch he made yesterday were amazing. And I think with him and Jonnu Smith and Henry, that's kind of where the offense is going to funnel. So, again, it kind of limits what Corey Davis can do. He is a free agent, so I'd like to see him go to a team that maybe can utilize him more. But I wouldn't necessarily sell on him. We've seen enough, I think, out of this year to think there's enough talent there to be a viable fantasy player every single week. I just think he needs to be on a better team. And I'm hoping that happens for him moving forward. I love seeing Jonnu, though. Finally kind of back at it. Of course, really just the touchdown that kind of saved him. He had one big play, but outside of that, it was really the touchdown that kind of
as a Mark Andrews heavily invested, I would take the touchdown.
Don't talk to me about Mark Andrews. I actually put him in a DFS flex spot. Had I just gone with my best friend, Hayden Hurst, because I had the money to pay up for him, he was, which is crazy to say it right now, Mark Andrews is less than Hayden Hurst in DFS. But had I just paid up and taken Hayden Hurst, which I did have that leftover salary, I just thought, this was the week. This was the week that Mark Andrews was going to do something. Could have won an extra $200. So I'm not happy about that right now. I'm really not happy about that.
Speaking of Mark Andrews, on to our next.
Yeah. Mark
both
Andrews.
these teams are probably gonna kill us before the end of the year.
I know one of them is for sure, and that's going to be the Colts, who lost 24-10 to the Ravens. Baltimore here, 18 for Lamar Jackson, 5 for Dobbins, 9 for Edwards, 6 points for Hollywood Brown, 8 points for Nick Boyle, and 5 points for Mark Andrews. What are you expecting from the Ravens game moving forward? We know that Mark Ingram was ruled out in this one. Again, I'm going to say I thought Dobbins looked really good on some of his runs. They just seem to love Gus Edwards. Got almost all the goal line work. Actually had a fumble at the goal line. Then they get right back down in there. And what do? They give it right back to Gus Edwards again, and he scores a touchdown.
Yeah, and you would like to think, based on potential talent and draft spot, that Dobbins is going to be a guy that keeps getting a bigger workload going forward. I'm still not convinced at this point they don't go right back to having Mark Ingram be the lead in carries when he eventually comes back. They said it probably wasn't going to be till after week 10, so probably another week. But you look at it, 12 carries for Dobbins, 11 for Edwards. Both of them had 2 targets. Edwards, like you said, getting the red zone, gets the touchdown. That really puts it on, if you're playing Dobbins, you're doing it because you think that he's going to be incredibly efficient with his touches, which he has been a couple of weeks, but most of the weeks, you're not playing a soft defense. You can't count on a guy busting a 50-yard run every week to boost it up, or hoping that he somehow falls into the end zone, and that seems to be where we're at. That's really frustrating. I would say the same thing is incredibly frustrating about tight ends. Andrews had 5 targets. Nick Boyle had 4 targets. Boyle's listed at him on the depth chart. I'm almost at the place now where if I have other options, I'm putting Andrews on the pine for a while. The Ravens have been a good team for NFL purposes. They've been a horrific experience for fantasy purposes. We wondered on Friday with Hollywood Brown complaining that he needed to be more involved, what was going to happen there. 5 targets. There's not enough volume passing-wise, and there's not enough volume for any single rusher.
Can we stop calling him Hollywood Brown, by the way? He's more like
Brown?
made for TV. Yeah, he's like made for TV Hollywood Brown right now. He is not Hollywood Brown. I don't...
How about we call him Salt Lake City Brown?
I don't know what to say. I felt like I kind of called this earlier in the offseason. I was ridiculed heavily for not having Lamar Jackson as a good... I had him top 5, and I think he's right now quarterback 13. He made some good throws. That was one of the games that was kind of popping up. I watched a lot of Red Zone yesterday since the Browns weren't on, so I just kind of had Red Zone going. Was watching the TV. Who was the TV? I don't even remember right now because I was really not really paying attention. But yes, exactly, Dennis. Telenova Brown. He needs a made-for-TV Brown, like
Telenovela.
movie for TV, straight to TV Brown, something like that. He's not Hollywood anymore, but it's. Lamar made some good throws yesterday. I will say that he looked a little bit better than I've seen in the past couple weeks, but that team in general does not look the same as they did last year. So Indianapolis, Indy. Jordan Wilkins 5 points, Jonathan Taylor 9, Michael Pittman. So it's good to see him getting involved in the offense. 9 points, and gosh dang it! Every time,
Alley Cox.
I always
Sorry,
go.
I'll write the whole thing.
No, it's not your fault. As soon as I immediately go college for some reason because I do like DeMonte Cox. He's a good wide receiver.
Because the Colts look like a college offense.
Cox. Probably, yeah. They're not even that good. Taylor looked good early in that game. Has the fumble, pretty much gets benched, and it goes to Jordan Wilkins. I did see the notes today that Frank Reich came out and said he still has a level of confidence in Jonathan Taylor and felt like he should have gotten him more carries, but he didn't. What are your overall thoughts on this Colts offense for fantasy?
I mean, they're almost an entire avoid. Yesterday, I benched Taylor so that I could play Tony Pollard. And that in the morning when it looked like Zeke was going to miss, and then right before game time they said Zeke might play, and I was like, nah, Pollard probably still be a better option, and almost was. Taylor gets a touchdown, which is the only thing that keeps him from being about 2 or 3 points. 6 carries is not enough. He's not getting enough passing work. There really isn't enough passing volume for anyone, considering that they continuously seem to be hitting 12 different people in the passing game. It's just an ugly offense. Doesn't look very good. We've talked about Rivers struggling. Oh, well, that would have been a good idea if David Johnson hadn't gotten injured.
Yeah, what was it? I think was it Joe Schobert that laid him out? I think it's not pretty.
But I think it's tough, especially for the draft capital and dynasty. You just hope that Taylor will grow into it in future seasons. But a lot of people, myself included, I went wide receiver heavy, which murdered me because of the wide receivers I took, and then was pretty excited about getting Raheem Mostert and Jonathan Taylor. I'm like, I'm going to be fine at running back, and I have been murdered.
Hey, I hear you. I built my running back core in redraft this year a lot around Jonathan Taylor and guys like Zeke, and it's just not working out for me either. Taylor, I am more worried now than I have ever been on Jonathan Taylor, and it's not great. We've mentioned on here multiple times, I know I have, that there's all these people on Twitter breaking down how he hasn't looked that impressive running the ball. He's missing holes that he usually didn't miss when he was in college. Not getting a lot of – he's still getting some passing game work, but he's not looking like the same player. I don't know if that has something to do with, we've talked about him missing the entire offseason and everything going on. Did that affect him? Is it nerves? Is he putting too much pressure on himself? I don't know, but it's not looking great right now. I don't think he's the player you want to sell in Dynasty. I don't even know if you could sell him for a used pair of socks right now in redraft. Like, he's just been bad. The only thing we can hope is that they continue to give him the ball and he gets it figured out. But the fact that Jordan Wilkins is outproducing him right now on the field terrifies me. Because I saw a lot of people today, and I can't necessarily say they're wrong in thinking so, are comparing Jonathan Taylor, not just to Marlon Mack, to Trent Richardson.
Yeah.
And that's terrifying.
I was more, do you start to worry, are they going to bring Marlon Mack back? Because,
someone brought that up today as well. And that's going to kill his value. Well,
because right now, Marlon Mack looked a heck of a lot better than this last year. And
that hurts me to say.
Our friend Dennis said, you shouldn't give up on Marlon Mack. If he hadn't gotten injured, would we be seeing less Jonathan Taylor than we're even seeing right now? And I think the answer is yes.
Probably. I cannot openly admit that. It would go against the clauses that I've signed to praise Marlon Mack, but I will say little bit disappointed that I can't say I disagree with the statements you're making on Mr. Mack there. A surprisingly good game here yesterday. The Chiefs beating the Panthers 33-31. Teddy Bridgewater, 28 points. CMC came back and balled out as usual with 37. Robbie Anderson, 15. The GOAT, Curtis Samuel, with 26 points. And DJ Moore, 3 points. So everybody was all on the train. I don't think we were, but I don't think the three of us were, but there was a lot of people thinking that Mike Davis might keep his role in this offense once CMC came back. Clearly was not the case. CMC dominated in your fantasy game. But should we be worried about DJ Moore? Even when Curtis Samuel was out and injured, DJ Moore was not a major part of this offense. Now that Curtis Samuel is coming on, my God, Curtis Samuel, I am going to start taking victory laps here very soon. If he continues to produce like this, has been phenomenal, and it really seems to be coming at the expense of DJ Moore.
Yeah, well, first of all, I hope we all enjoyed that CMC game. I hope you got him in your lineup. I hope you played him with confidence because he now appears to be injured and is likely out again.
Is he? I thought it was just I thought he was fine.
They said day to day looking doubtful. So
let's see if everybody dropped Mike Davis. I know who I'm going back for on the waiver wire.
Yeah. So then the Dennis, I humbly accept your penance.
Yeah.
Teddy Bridgewater threw it 49 times. DJ Moore got 3 targets. You should be terrified if you own DJ Moore. That's, we've said before it wasn't going to be a high-volume passing offense. That was not the case yesterday. The only one for whom it was not a high-volume passing offense was DJ Moore. Mike Davis got more targets and receptions than that coming in to spell McCaffrey.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm worried about him. I love DJ Moore, and I really thought that he was going to be kind of like that. I think I probably compared him, just to the Justin Jefferson role in this offense with Joe Brady. And Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase had the better year, but Justin Jefferson still put up a ton of points. It just, for whatever reason, it's not working. I mean, Curtis Samuel, while he's getting some work in the receiving game, I think a lot of his value is just coming because they're moving him all over the field, which we saw at Ohio State. It's what I talked about them doing with him, and they're finally doing it. And I think because of that, and Robbie Anderson, who has become their one, he's just relegated DJ
Anderson,
Moore to
13 targets, 9 targets for Curtis Samuel, 10 to McCaffrey, 6 to Mike Davis. So they had 16, pounding the backs. But 13 and 9, I mean, they have a clear 1-2 in the receiving. And you might be prone to think, well, was it the coverage? But Kansas City hasn't demonstrated the kind of secondary where they have a shutdown corner, so I'm not willing to attribute it to that.
Yeah, it's not someone dynasty-wise I'm selling, but I'm worried about him this year because I don't know if Carolina is going to stay in the Teddy Bridgewater business, although I don't think he's shown you any reason to move on from him either. I think
he's been better than I expected. I'm willing to eat it on that. I thought he was going to be a terrible. They've been fun to watch. He's looked pretty decent. I think if they got a little bit of a better defense, they win some of these games, and that could be the difference between being like 5-4 and 3-6.
Yep. Yeah, it's insane to see him producing the way that he has, and a couple of those guys, especially, like I said, Curtis Samuel. You just love to see it, baby. You just love to see it. For Kansas City, Mahomes, 30 points, CEH, 12, Tyreek Hill, 33, and Travis Kelce, 25. Another dud of a game here for Le'Veon Bell. Barring injury, is he a stay away at this point?
To me, he's a glorified handcuff at this point in time. He's a glorified handcuff in case CEH got knocked out. This is 2 weeks in a row where they've had a good rushing matchup where they haven't really run the ball. And when they are, CEH has been the better play. Bell got 4 carries for 8 yards and 1 reception for -5 yards yesterday. That is nowhere near somebody that we should have in our lineup.
I'm pretty sure that's Teddy Bridgewater, number 10 in yards per pass attempt is what I'm guessing.
Yeah, per attempt.
So, I mean, right there, in all honesty, I kid you not, is exactly why I'm going to go back to this real quick, and then I'll talk about Kansas City. Why I was so big on Curtis Samuel this offseason, because, and I'm pretty sure we talked about it, all three of us in the offseason, was Curtis Samuel was number 2 in air yards last year, but he just wasn't catching the balls because Kyle Allen was not throwing it. Like, Kyle Allen was not throwing it accurately to him. Curtis Samuel was getting open down the field last year. He just wasn't getting the ball. And I did think that Teddy Bridgewater could do that for him. So, and we're starting to see that this year with those two. For Kansas City, I'm with you. I mean, I wasn't big on Bell going there anyways. I didn't think it was going to, like I said, I thought for anything it might drop CEH's value some, and I wasn't even that big on CEH. I do think it's also fair to say that CEH is not quite having the grand year that people thought he was going to have either. Granted, the three of us were not as big on him, but, I mentioned this in a chat today when we were talking about him and Jonathan Taylor, and everybody was saying, well, Taylor is by far the biggest disappointment. It's not even close. I mean, he's been the biggest, but I wouldn't say it's not close. CEH
people were talking about good. CEH as a top 5 play
he went
at the position.
And redraft.
Well, and you've seen no Saquon Barkley, and CMC's been injured most of the season. Zeke's having a down year, and still he's nowhere near that level. Yeah,
I mean, he was going in the first round of drafts this year because of the team he went on. And Jonathan Taylor, I know in mine where I again, openly admitted, I've been very big on Jonathan Taylor. So I was drafting him before most people, and I got him in the 3rd round in most of my drafts. CEH was a first-round pick. he's been producing as I think he's still right now, he's either at RB 13 or 12 on the year. That's because he's getting the touches. He's getting the work. So it's kind of hard to fall off that.
And he's had a couple of huge games.
Yeah, for me, he has been fairly, I don't want to say, he's not been more disappointing than Taylor. That's not what I'm saying. But I also don't think it's not even close. He's been disappointing. He has not quite had the year that people wanted him to. Just traded JT and CEH for Miles Sanders, Chark in a 1.5 currently. 16 team, 1 QBR points per reception. I think it's a good trade. I mean, I like Sanders and Chark a lot. I like Chark a whole lot more if Trevor Lawrence ends up with the Jaguars. That's for damn sure. So, I mean, I love JT. I'm not a big fan of CEH, so I think that's probably a good deal for you, depending on who you can get at that one spot, at that one, if it stays 1.5 or right around that, who you can get at that pick there. But, yeah, I think it's an overall good trade. Thoughts, Matt?
3 enigmatic running backs in that deal.
Yeah. The 34 Vikings. The Vikings beat the Lions 34-20. Stafford 8 points, Swift 12, Marvin Jones 13, Danny Amendola 14, TJ Hawkinson 14. Not a lot to say here. The Lions have talent, but just haven't been good. I clearly everybody knows where I put the blame on that one. So what is your thoughts here, Matt?
Yeah, and Kerryon Johnson not going away. Got 4 carries for 29. Got the same number of receptions as Swift. So, I mean, it's another team where it's an incredibly dreadful committee for fantasy purposes. It was tough to see Stafford knocked out, but Detroit, yeah. I had higher hopes. They just don't seem to be able to put it together.
Yep, it's gonna be great. You know, the one thing I'll say is, when the offseason comes, buy low on Swift if you can, because I think once they get a competent coach and offensive coordinator in here, Swift is going to be really, really good. I mean, I did see a lot of that game, and just their fascination with throwing Adrian freaking Peterson the ball in running back screens, who gets started probably, I would say, half a second faster than my grandfather, who uses a walker to get around, compared to using DeAndre Swift, who looks explosive every time he touches the ball. I mean, shit, even Kerryon Johnson, and I don't even like Kerryon Johnson.
Well, Kerryon Johnson had 7.3 yards a carry yesterday, so, I mean, I would more understand if they were doing a committee of Kerryon Johnson.
Oh, I agree.
Swift.
I agree. Like, them getting Adrian Peterson out there makes absolutely no sense. He does not – I will give it to him. The first couple games he was there, he actually still looked good. He still looked okay. This is a guy who can – he takes like 30 steps before he starts actually moving. Like, it's And
then on to your favorite team in the NFC North, the Minnesota Vikings.
Kirk Cousins, 20 points. Dalvin Cook, 39. Adam Thielen, 5. Justin Jefferson, 9. And Irv Smith, 15. Brought this up a couple weeks ago. Is it time to start believing in Irv Smith? Had a good game, I want to say it was 4 weeks ago, then did nothing, and now he's back again with 2 touchdowns. What are your thoughts on him being a viable tight end moving forward?
I mean, Kubiak has typically used tight ends. I mean, we're talking about with the Texans, with the Broncos, even with the Ravens. He's a guy that likes to use the tight end, so it makes sense that they would be using a tight end. I think the one holdback that's becoming clear after a couple weeks is Dalvin Cook's incredible, and if they don't need to pass, they're not going to because they have Kirk Cousins, and that might be the liability now. I think we're going to have to look at repositioning Thielen and Jefferson too, because when the Vikings are playing well, there isn't enough volume for them. But Smith, it seemed like it was encouraging to see that he was a very frequent goal line target when they were throwing, because both of his touchdowns were in close. And given the state of that position, you could do a lot worse than rolling the dice and hoping for a red zone touchdown.
Yeah, I mean, we all said at the beginning of this year, we thought it was finally time for Irv Smith to pass Kyle Rudolph. We've seen it in a couple games here and there. Hopefully he continues to get more of the work. He's an athletic freak. I think he can be a really good tight end for them. The one thing I'll say is you brought up how good Dalvin Cook has been. we've also seen this out of Dalvin Cook, where he has these just amazing, like elite, the top tier performances, and then he just kind of gets brought down a peg, whether it's injury or finally teams start selling out to stop him in the run, and then they have to start passing the ball and putting it on Captain Clutch Kirk Cousins, where he shows you that he's maybe not quite as clutch as we want him to be. So I do expect that to happen moving forward. Maybe 1-2 more weeks of Dalvin Cook doing this, and then if they start slowing him down, you're going to have to see if Jefferson, Thielen, Smith can start beating you again. So I'm with you. I think at this point, we've kind of seen what the tight end position is Travis Kelce and everybody else. And so Irv Smith, I think, falls into that everybody else category where you can possibly start trusting him moving forward. Giants 23 over Washington 20. Daniel Jones 12 points. Wayne Gallman 14. Sterling Shepard 11. And Evan Ingram 15. Are we giving up on Darius Slayton for the 2020 season? I'm not giving up on him moving forward, but 2020 is the time to just kind of throw in the towel. Throw in the damn towel! All Rocky style.
Yeah, he had 1 carry for 2 yards. The team had 35 carries. Daniel Jones threw it 34 times. He had 1 target and 1 reception for 6 yards. I mean, when you have, Austin Mack out there catching 4 passes for 75. Well, that's fine. I'm not disparaging Austin Mack.
No,
that should kind of tell you where they're at with Slayton. He had hit or miss value when Shepard and Ingram weren't there. And since Shepard and Ingram have come back, it's been like Darius who.
Yeah, it sucks. I think Shepard coming back has been the biggest hit, especially because we talked about, for me, I'll continue to say it and probably won't be talking about it much more moving forward, but I do think the loss of Barkley hurt him more than anybody else because it really has kind of limited the single coverage he's gotten on the outside. And Daniel Jones' ability to kind of have time to throw it deep. So I'm with you. For at least the 2020 season, I'm giving up on Slayton for the most part. I think he's kind of moved to my bench, and I'm not starting him.
If only, and I would go so far as to say in redraft, if you can find options, he's the kind of guy I would probably drop to collect a critical handcuff if I'm moving toward the playoffs, because the chance that you're going to feel good about plugging him in any important matchup right now is nil. I mean, the Giants, they probably wish they played Washington every week.
Yeah, with the way they look, for sure. For Washington, Alex Smith 11, Antonio Gibson 12, J.D. McKissick 17, and Terry McLaurin 24 points. Tough loss for Washington here. Kyle Allen done for the year. Can this team make noise in the NFC East with Alex Smith? Do we see a return of Dwayne Haskins?
I'd say no on Haskins because it seems like there was a bigger issue than performance, which has kind of leaked out to Ron Rivera's credit. He doesn't air a lot of that laundry, and maybe that was partly because they were hoping they were going to trade him. Maybe they still hope they're going to trade him. Smith looked a little rusty, I would say, some of those interceptions, but he also moved the ball pretty well, had a good connection with Terry McLaurin, which is at this point all we care about for fantasy purposes. Looked like he had good connection with McKissick. Their offense didn't look bad. I think if they could have avoided some of those late turnovers, they may have come back and won. This is 2 really tight games that I thought Washington was going to beat the Giants this year, and they lost.
Yeah. I'll be interested to see if we see any kind of return for Dwayne Haskins. It was actually Ron Rivera who came out, and again, maybe it was just kind of to help give him some kind of value, saying that we may not have seen the last of Dwayne Haskins with the Washington football team. That was before the Kyle Allen injury. So maybe we see him return. I would have to think they're at least going to have him activated, because if Alex Smith gets hurt and you don't have anybody else active, you've got to throw somebody out there, quarterback. But I'll be interested to see what to do. I'm with you. I thought Alex Smith, for the most part, looked kind of decent for just getting thrown out there again. We haven't seen him play football in over a year. He's had that horrific leg injury, came back out there. Now we're going to know he's going to get all of the first team reps. I would assume he's going to be the starter going into next week. So it'll be interesting to see how this team looks with him. Terry McLaurin still looks good, was definitely hitting a guy like J.D. McKissick. So if you can get him off your waiver wire, he might be a guy that I'm focusing in on, because they seem to use him more, especially in the third down situations, than Antonio Gibson. Texans beat the Jaguars here 27-25. Watson, 24 points. Duke Johnson, 15. Will Fuller, 21. Brandon Cooks, 17. If David Johnson misses time, is Duke Johnson a solid play at running back?
I think he's a play at running back. I mean, you would like to see a little better yards per carry, but it looked like he was certainly getting the lion's share of the work there, and he put up a decent day, got a touchdown. This is another matchup. The Texans have 2 wins this year. It was the 2 games they played the Jaguars, so I'm sure they wish they were playing Jacksonville a few more times this season. Be curious to see what they do in other games. I actually thought this game was closer than I expected, especially after we heard Watson and Watt talking about how they weren't going to be part of a rebuild, that they just needed to get some things in gear. They didn't look incredible in this game, and they have line issues, which has been part of the problem for Deshaun Watson too. He still ends up leading this team in rushing yesterday, but I think any time you have a starting running back who's going to get a lion's share of the touches, that's somebody that you're playing in 2020.
Yeah. I mean, if you had David Johnson, I'd grab him. We'll see how long he's going to be out. Did they say for sure how long? Is he going to be out for multiple weeks? I know. I saw the hit. He got leveled, but yeah. I didn't see if it was anything actually serious. But
I think it's too early for them to totally say. I mean, even McCaffrey, they say he's day to day. They just said today it's doubtful that he's going to be able to play, which is a bummer. Let me see what Houston's injury report. Most teams don't practice on Mondays, which makes it a little bit tougher. He's still just questionable with a concussion. We've seen some people bounce back from concussions quickly, and we've seen others that have that have had to hang out for a while. So we'll just have to see how it goes.
Yeah, I mean, what's going on, Jose? I love Duke Johnson anyways. He can do a lot for you in the receiving game. He's not quite a great runner, but I don't think David Johnson has been either this year. So, he'd be a guy if I can get him off my waiver wire, especially now, I would, because running back is just going to continually get hurt. As you mentioned earlier, we've got three good running backs going on by this week. So adding a guy like Duke Johnson to help you out might not be a bad thing, even if it's just for a couple weeks. For Jacksonville, the future Tom Brady, as Dennis called him on the podcast Friday, Jake Luton, 21 points. James Robinson, 15, and DJ Chark, 27. Luton looked decent in his first game, albeit against a bad Houston Texans defense. And we do know they came out earlier today and said he will be the guy, at least for next week as well. What are your thoughts on him moving forward with this Jacksonville offense?
Yeah, I think we know they weren't exactly pumped about what we had seen from Gardner Minshew. I don't know how much of that was the injury, but he certainly looked a little more interesting than I was expecting. You're right that it was not a terrible matchup. So I'll be curious to see. They have some fun pieces. It was nice to see somebody actually being able to put the ball out there and get it to Shark. James Robinson probably having that RB1 season we thought we might get from CEH or Jonathan Taylor. He's been really solid. They have some fun pieces, and they remind me more of Miami from last year, where they're not getting a lot of wins, but they're kind of fun to watch, and you can see some young talent. It'll be interesting to see. I don't know how much they want a young quarterback to succeed, though, because I would think with the range they're in, they're certainly going to take a franchise quarterback. Yeah. So I don't know what the ceiling is for Luton to succeed. But, reminds me a little bit of when we saw Gardner Minshew come in there last year.
That's what I was going to say, yeah.
He's playing with a lot of heart. He's leaving it all out there, and it's good for him. It's good for it. This was actually kind of a fun game to watch, considering both teams are 1-6.
Yeah, I mean, it really helped when first play from scrimmage for the Jaguars was like a 70-something yard touchdown to DJ Chark, and then the Texans get the ball and same thing to Will Fuller. Although, I don't know if you saw that play, it was actually like a second or two after the time clock expired, and the refs did not call it, which was kind of interesting. But then Brandon Cooks still took it to the house. Yeah, I'm with you. I thought they looked a lot like you just mentioned, the Jaguars from last year, and in hopes in someone who has DJ Chark in a couple places, him and Luton can continue that because he had a great game, and it almost goes to what I was talking about just a couple weeks ago, in that Chark was continually getting open and Minshew was just not able to hit him. He was overthrowing, underthrowing. Maybe that was due to the hand injury, but Jake Luton was able to actually make those throws, so hopefully that continues to boost Chark's value moving forward. Next,
on to the afternoon games, which were a nightmare for a while.
I think this was probably, in my opinion, the only good one. Raiders beat the Chargers 31-26. Carr, 14 points. Jacobs, 13. Devontae Booker, 12. Nelson Aguilar, 13. And Darren Waller, 13 as well. Booker looked sharp. He's been getting a lot of run here the past couple weeks. Had a lot of run in Cleveland last week. Got a lot of run this week as well. 2 questions for you. Are the Raiders a playoff team? And are you starting to worry more and more about Josh Jacobs?
I think Jacob's still going to be the lead, but it might be moving to more of a shared duty. And I think the bigger thing is, if you had hoped Richard was going to be kind of a flexible play, I think that's going to get knocked out. Booker is running solid. He's looked pretty solid running. He's also a pretty capable pass blocker and pass receiver, which means he could easily usurp that kind of role. I think it also gives you a clear indication that were Jacobs to get injured and miss time, he, to me, is a guy who could take on a 25 carry load for a couple of weeks. I thought he was decent at times in Denver. He kind of just got rotated out of the mix. As to whether they're a playoff team, they certainly could be with the way AFC is. We know we're going to have at least 7. We could potentially have 8, depending on how COVID hits this next month and a half. They're 5-3 now. We've seen Pittsburgh's doing pretty good, 8-0, 8-1 for the Chiefs. You have Tennessee and the Colts, who are both kind of vying in there, but have looked vulnerable at times. Baltimore's looked vulnerable at times. Cleveland, I still think, has the talent to make the playoffs. Outside of that, I think Miami's a good story. I'd probably put the Raiders ahead of them right now because they've been doing it. I think they were near this point last year. The real question is, last year they got close to this point and they lost steam down the stretch. If they can kind of hold on and not lose steam, they could be a 9-7, 10-6 team, which puts you in the playoff mix.
Yeah, I mean, I said this last week when they beat the Browns. I thought that was a huge win for them. I thought realistically it could be them and Browns vying for those last couple wild card spots, and now they had the tiebreaker. They had the head-to-head win. They now go in and beat a Chargers team, which, in all honesty, they probably should have lost that game. The Chargers, in my opinion, look like the better team for most of the game. They come through with a big defensive play there at the end, win that game. I'm with you. The Dolphins, they're looking good. I think that they're playing good as a team. That defense is playing really good, but they play a couple really good teams here down the stretch. Obviously, the Raiders also have probably, in my opinion, out of all those teams you mentioned, the best win in their cap right now with beating the Chiefs as well. So Raiders, I think me and Dennis, I know both picked them to make the playoffs. I don't want to say they're a lock, but if you go back and look at the schedule they had the beginning part of this season to come out of where they are right now, I think in a way they almost are a virtual lock to make it. They've beaten earlier on this year, there were people talking about them maybe only being like 2-6 right now because of the teams they were playing. And then they went off and they beat teams like Kansas City. They've beaten other good teams. I can't think of anybody else off the top of my head, but they've won against teams that people did not think they beat. The Patriots was another one that nobody thought that they were going to be able to go in there and beat.
I'm pretty sure at home too.
Yeah, they did. That's right. Yeah, at home, because the Saints looked like they were not going to be. The Saints looked like they were in trouble early in the season as well. So they've beaten teams that people did not think they were going to be able to beat. So I'm with you. Again, I don't want to say a virtual lock because then I feel like Las Vegas is going to take a huge nosedive after I say that, but I really think they have a real good shot of making the playoffs. They're a team that has looked really good this year. On the Chargers side here, Herbert continues to dominate, 23 points. Kalen Garbage, 16 points. Keenan Allen, 25 points. Mike Williams, 13, and Hunter Henry, 7. Jackson gets, which is just frustrating as all get out, gets hurt before the game, and they don't say anything to anybody. Gets
I
pulled in
wondered
the first.
about that.
Yeah, he got injured. I guess he hurt himself in warm-ups. They threw him out there for one. I guess the first drive, and it didn't work out, so they pull him. Kalen Garbage and Josh Kelly get the play, but I guess again I'm gonna call him Kalen Garbage because I do not think he's good. Gets most of the run. Are you fading Joshua Kelly? Is Kalen Garbage gonna be the guy we're going to the waiver wires for this week?
Well, this is really 2 weeks in a row that the Chargers have shown you with their player rotation that they would take anyone over Joshua Kelly. Last week it was Troy Maine Pope, who I bet would have been the lead dog had he not gotten injured and been out. They, even with him out and with Jackson out, they didn't turn to Kelly. They turned to Kalen Ballage, who I didn't even realize was actually part of the team. I guess Dennis did because he raised his hand when I asked. I'm like, I thought it was a misprint. I'm like, Kalen Ballage, who are you? Did ESPN screw up? But it kind of just Kelly's a rookie. He looked good at times early on, but he's really struggled. I think he's somebody that the coach kind of called him out a couple weeks ago and didn't seem to respond. And I think you're kind of seeing where that's at. But Eckler gone, Justin Jackson gone, Troy Maine Pope gone, Joshua Kelly still not the lead guy. That pretty much tells you all you need to know.
Just a really cool stat here on my guy Herbert. List of quarterbacks to pass for 2,000 yards and 15 touchdowns in their first 7 career starts. Justin Herbert, end of list. That's how good he's been so far this year. This is actually his first start to not throw for 3 touchdown passes. That's how good he's been. His actual total stats are 2,146 passing yards and 17 passing touchdowns. He has been phenomenal. It's very interesting because I don't remember if you were on with us or not, Matt, at this point, but I remember me and Dennis having a conversation. I don't want to say it was this offseason. It may have been the first offseason you joined us because you were with us last offseason as well, right? Not just this past one. Where we were talking about how worried we were for the quarterback position and how we've seen a lot of these guys like Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, Drew Brees, Phillip Rivers, Big Ben, Eli Manning, who are all kind of coming to the end of their rope. Man, am I excited for a lot of these young guys. And I'm not putting Justin Herbert up there with Patrick Mahomes, but I honestly think, even though I'm the biggest fan of him in the world, I think everybody can admit he's in that tier below Patrick Mahomes, though. He's in that tier 2 quarterbacks now, and Herbert's going to be fun to watch moving forward. It's been really cool to see him kind of balling out here in his rookie season. Steelers beat the Cowboys.
Honestly, all 3 of the rookies have looked really good.
Yeah.
Burrow, not a great team, but he's looked good at times. We'll get to Tua's game in a minute, but I was very impressed by what I saw yesterday.
Yeah, he looked 180 degrees different than the guy we saw week 1, that is for sure. Steelers beat the Cowboys here 24-19. Big Ben 25 points, Connor 4, Juju 21, Chase Claypool 15, Deontay Johnson 14, and Eric Ebron 11. What do you make of Connor's usage here? A lot of backs were used, a few big short yardage attempts foiled with McFarland and Snell in the game.
Yeah, to me it was. I kept looking to see if Connor was hurt, and they didn't say anything about it, and he was in there at the end of the game. I know he wasn't having a fantastic game, but honestly, no one was. And you had a couple of big conversions when the game was in doubt at this point in time. First of all, this was the last 3 minutes of the game. Possibly the most surprising game of the afternoon because I thought the Steelers were just going to walk all over Dallas.
Afternoon, not the Sunday. We'll get to the most surprising game of Sunday, but afternoon, yes.
That's what I'm saying. For a while there in the afternoon, it looked like I know you think the Raiders winning is an upset, and actually
I'm talking about
they were not favored.
The late game, the late game Sunday.
Yeah, no, I know the Raiders were not favored in that game. So that actually technically was an upset. The one we're going to get to was an upset, and for a while it looked like are all 3 teams that are underdogs going into the afternoon going to win here. And you saw them drive with McFarland and go nowhere, drive with Snell and go nowhere. James Conner's your guy. He's looked incredible for most of the season. Yeah. He's been very solid. And for him not to be out there, I have not seen any rhyme or reason for it. I thought it was really weird. The usage and rotations seemed weird to me. I don't know what was going on, but it was like they were not taking this game seriously until it was like, oh, damn, are we actually going to lose to the AAF? We better get on this.
Yeah, and that's where I'm going to go with it. I honestly don't think they were taking it seriously. Pittsburgh did not look. I don't want to say they had a down game. It almost looked like they just weren't there for that game. Obviously, me living in Texas, I had the red zone on. This was a national televised game for me down there. I don't know if it was for everybody, but for us, that's obviously the game that was on. So I had that up, and I had that game up, and then I had red zone up on my other TV, so I could kind of check in on Justin Herbert, and I was watching the Tua game as well. Those were the two they were really kind of going back and forth to because of the way that they were scoring. And it just looked like the Steelers were not up for this game. It really wasn't until they really started looking like, we're going to lose this game if we don't do something, that they started to pick it up. Like Dallas, I honestly think with the way that Garrett Gilbert played, really kind of revitalized that team. Like this team started playing like, oh shit, we actually have somebody who can do something back here.
Well,
and
even
so
the defensive rotation, the defensive rotation, that touchdown to CeeDee Lamb, they had TJ Watt covering him. TJ Watt's not even a great cover linebacker, and you're going to put him on freaking CeeDee Lamb? I mean, there was some weird stuff going on in that game, and for a while I was just like, okay, I'm actually going to root against Pittsburgh here because you guys look like you don't care, and Dallas looks like they cared. I know you're still not happy with Zeke, but I thought he ran with a little bit more passion and gusto yesterday. He's
better than he has.
I'm wondering if he has actually been banged up for a few weeks, and that's why he looks more lethargic out there.
I mean, maybe he's been hitting up Dunkin' Donuts too much in the morning before the games. I don't know, but yeah, I mean, he looked better. I will say, Juju is coming on. He's been looking really good the past 3 weeks, continuing to be the top target there. I am not worried about Connor. I think this goes more to what you were just saying and what I just said. I think this was just one of those games. Again, this is not a college team, and they're not. You hear about college teams doing it all the time, looking ahead, right? Like Ohio State plays Maryland this week, although Maryland's look really good. But I saw go like I'm trying to think of who's a bad team. Well, they already played Rutgers this past week. But say they were playing Penn State this coming week, and they had Rutgers the week before. A lot of times you get caught up in a game in college because you're looking ahead. You're like, we're going to beat Rutgers. We're not worried about Rutgers. Let's start focusing for Penn State. And then Rutgers comes out and punches you in the mouth, and you're like, oh, shit. And it kind of takes you a little bit to get going. I don't think NFL teams do that, but I do kind of think that Pittsburgh kind of came in here with that mentality of, we're going to win this game. Like, we don't have to try that hard because of how bad Dallas has been. And Dallas did the same thing. Dallas came out with that defense. That defense looked a lot better than we've seen them look all year long against the Steelers last night. We saw Garrett Gilbert actually give you good quarterback play. And that's weird to say because Garrett Gilbert was like a practice guy on the Browns. And I think they signed him off the Browns this year, actually. He's not what you expected. We expected that to be Andy Dalton out there doing that. Garrett Gilbert comes out there and looks good. I think he gave a boost to this team as well. But they did come back and win it. I'm going to say that I think it was just a weird game overall. Connor's been too good to kind of panic or worry. It was just it's a bad situation because a lot of us thought he'd be good DFS, and you had to play him because it was a great matchup, and it just didn't work out for you. It was one of those games.
I would say, too, it's going to bear watching Ben on the practice reports. They said he injured both of his knees.
Both knees,
and those are like 38-year-old knees. And as somebody who identifies with that age group more and more now, they said it's cautiously optimistic that he'll play Week 10. But
I was about to say, it would be
a big downgrade to their offense if we go back to Mason Rudolph or, maybe Josh Dobbs. But we saw last year with the replacements the Steelers have, that was not a fun offense to watch. And with so many good offenses on a bye and so many other people injured, that would be kind of a crushing blow. Yeah,
absolutely. For Dallas, Garrett Gilbert 14, Zeke Elliott 8, Tony Pollard 6, Amari Cooper 12, CeeDee Lamb 15. Dallas hung in until late in this one. What were your thoughts on Gilbert and Zeke? He seemed to be running better, but was still getting a lot of split with Pollard. Are you worried that was just because of the injury, or do you think that's what we're going to see moving forward?
I'm worried that he has the kind of injury that's going to linger and stuff. I know it was a real point of pride for him not to be able to continue to say he's never missed an NFL game due to injury. I get that, and props to you for that. Sometimes with those kind of soft tissue and lower body injuries, what you really need is a week off to get better, which they're going into the bye week now. So maybe he will have that chance to get better. I'll be curious to see what happens too. I thought Gilbert looked pretty good leading the team. Certainly looked better than what we had seen from Dalton in his last two games. Presumably, Dalton, after a bye week, will have a better chance to come back from concussion and COVID. Be curious to see what they do there.
Yeah, I mean, I obviously hope that they lean more on Zeke, and I think obviously them going into their bye week this week probably helps him. You know, this is the first we heard about him having the hamstring injury, so maybe it's obviously not bad enough because they let him go out there and play. He looked good for the most part, so maybe it's one of those things. All right, we'll go into the bye week, allow him time to heal. It gives Garrett Gilbert time to get involved in this offense. I'll be curious to see if I would imagine we're not going to see Andy Dalton back. I haven't heard anything outside of him being still on the COVID list. So maybe this offense starts to build a little bit more kind of momentum moving forward there with Gilbert. They'll be a fun team to watch, see if they can start putting it together here in the second half. Dolphins beat the Cardinals 34-31. Tua 21 points, Jordan Howard 7, Preston Williams 16, Devontae Parker 12, and Mike Gesicki 7. Tua looks strong here in his second outing. Are the Dolphins a playoff contender?
I think they are potentially a playoff contender. They need to get a running back. You know, you went to pick up Burrito. You're like, should we get Washington? Neither of them are available, and we got our classic 19 yards and a fall into the end zone from Jordan Howard. So kind of back to no running game. It'll bear watching to see if Preston Williams comes back. I don't know if you're watching Football Night in America, but they said they think that injury actually happened on the touchdown celebration.
It did. It's when the teammate jumped.
Incredible.
Yeah. Well, and see, that's the thing. It wasn't even his fault. It was the teammate. You can see, if you watch it, it's right at the end. He's walking he's in the end zone, and then a teammate jumps up on him, and you can see his foot kind of give, and it goes down, and they said it's a sprain. So, yeah, that sucks because he looked amazing in that game. Like, it finally looked like they finally were at Tua here, and he was able to unlock Preston Williams. Let's go. And then, yeah, he gets injured by no fault of his own whatsoever.
Dolphins division is soft. We talked about there's kind of a soft group of, there's kind of the cream of the crop in the AFC. Then you have some enigmatic teams, and then you have this kind of young and encumbered team. I would put the Browns in there. I would put the Raiders in there. I would put the Dolphins in there. I mean, these are all teams that have winning records, that have some young talent, that have potential, that need to coalesce. I think their defense has gotten better as they've gone through the season. They get one more matchup with the Patriots that would be, I believe, in Miami. So, hopefully you can get a win there. They play the Jets again. They play Denver. I mean, there's going to be some chances for Miami. The big question was they won that game against the Rams, but we all saw that really didn't have a lot to do with Tua. Yesterday did. He brought them back. He got them the win. That to me, he looked good. He looked like he was settling in, and it looks like they're getting some of their players involved. They're a fun team. I think we all like their coach, Brian Flores. So I think there's definitely a chance they're a playoff contender.
Yeah, it's going to be – this race is going to be tight for the AFC coming down the stretch, and I really do think it's going to be interesting to see how that works. Hey, how do keeper league trades work? That's a very loaded question.
Kind of depends on the structure of your league.
Yeah, it completely depends on the structure of your league. I know ones that I have – some of the ones that it's only a couple of players, we do the round that they were drafted in. So say if you had since we're talking about the Dolphins, like a Tua you drafted in round 16, if you trade him to the other team, that team can keep him in the 16th round if that's what they choose to do. But it's completely based on your rule set. That's a kind of hard question to ask. Some keeper leagues are you keep 5 players off your roster, and those are your first 5 picks. It's all dependent on how your league has been set up. On Arizona's side here, Murray 37 points, Drake 11. I'm sorry, that's Edmonds 11. Edmonds 11, Kirk 23, and Hopkins 6. Murray looked great, but the Cardinals fall short. Your thoughts on Hopkins and Kirk? Hopkins shut out a little bit in this one. Was against Xavier Howard for the most part in that game, and I think he's kind of an underrated cornerback, but Kirk is definitely coming on here as of late.
Yeah, Kirk is coming on. I saw an enigmatic running back performance for Arizona and just assumed it was Kenyon Drake.
We said Friday, don't buy into Edmonds. Don't buy in. He always does this when it's his turn to shine. He just disappoints.
I think it's a combination. Kirk finally coming on, looking more like the guy we thought he might be for the last couple of years. But also you have to wonder if teams are really scheming against DeAndre Hopkins. And, it seemed like when he was in Houston, Watson was going to force the ball to him no matter what. Kyler Murray looks like he's comfortable if he wants to take off and run or if he wants to hit another receiver. Only 3 targets yesterday for Hopkins. He catches them all. But that kind of tells you maybe Murray just trying to be a little more discerning, trying to win. But to me, this was a bummer loss for Arizona because this was a big chance coming off that win before their bye over Seattle to kind of go up and take the lead in their division because they would have won the tiebreaker. So kind of a bummer loss, I thought, and kind of a confounding loss. Arizona is still, that I would put them in that potential playoff contender young player team, but it seems like it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back with them this season. Just about the time you start to believe in them, it doesn't quite come together. So this was a fun battle of young emerging teams that went a way I was totally not expecting.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think it would be – I thought it'd be a good game. I did not expect it to be this close or the Dolphins pulling it off. So I'm happy for them. For Arizona, I think it's just good for Kirk to finally start getting that shine. We've talked about for 2 years now that we thought once Larry Fitzgerald finally retired and Kirk could move into the slot that he would kind of ball out, and we're seeing it now. Him opposite of Hopkins is working out. He's that deep threat guy. Hopkins, the possession receiver. I think it was just like I said, a mix of Xavier Howard being on him and Kirk having the game he did. Hopkins, I'm not worried about it. We'll see him get 20-plus points this week. So it's just one of those games. When you have a DeAndre Hopkins, you get 1 or 2 games a year where he doesn't get you probably close to 20 points. So don't panic on Hopkins. I'll be interested to see if they finally activate Kenyon Drake because there were talks that he was close to being back. Maybe with a bad performance here by Chase Edmonds, we see Kenyon Drake back in the mix.
And if Drake is back, that's the time when you can obviously play Chase Edmonds.
Exactly. It's good for Chase Edmonds owners to hear that. The most surprising game of the entire day, in my opinion, the Saints just destroying the Buccaneers here, 38-3. Breeze 22 points, Kamara 15, Sanders 13, Thomas 10, Adam Troutman 12, and Taysom Mother effing Hill 10 points. The Saints looked dominant. Are they starting to turn it on?
Yeah, I mean, I think that was an incredible performance. They just beat them down. They looked like the Saints team that we all thought we were going to see when we picked them to be in the Super Bowl. Yeah. They were using all their weapons. It wasn't incredible for fantasy. You had a decent day for Kamara, but not an explosive day. You had a decent day for Michael Thomas, but probably not what you were hoping for. Sanders looked good. They got Traquan Smith the ball. I was really excited to see Troutman getting in there. Taysom Hill was running well. They were able to use him at quarterback some to give Breeze breaks since they were pounding the living snot out of the other team. They were back to using their trick plays and moving the ball around. They look like they just totally confounded Tampa Bay, a Tampa Bay team which fancies itself a Super Bowl contender.
Yeah, they definitely didn't look yesterday. Yeah, it was great. Obviously, Thomas getting involved yesterday was good to see. Overall, I thought great game by the Saints. We all picked them to win Friday, but I was not expecting that. I was expecting like a very good game overall, and they played a great game offensively and defensively there. Brady, just 2 points. Ronald Jones, 10. Fournette, 4. Mike Evans, 10. Chris Godwin, 7. AB, 6. And Gronk, 1. Obviously, Brady, literally the worst performance he's ever had in his pro career, which is weird to say this late into it. And this was by far his worst game, which I think also just speaks to how great he's been his entire career. Are you worried about him, or is it just, it's a game, you just got to throw it away? It was one of those, they just, kind of like we talked about earlier, got punched in the mouth and they just weren't able to recover from it.
They got punched in the mouth. I also wonder if they almost have an embarrassment of riches. I'm going to say, they won against the Giants on Monday Night Football. They did not look good.
Yeah.
Brady didn't look particularly good. And he looked really off last night. Is it too much? When he was in New England, they had Julian Edelman and Gronk, and it was like, well, I'm going to throw it to one of the two of them, or maybe I'm going to give it to my best friend, James White. There wasn't a whole lot of complexity. We saw it last night. They have 5 receivers that are vying for the ball. You got Miller and Tyler Johnson, which don't seem to be going away. Now you've added Antonio Brown, Godwin, Mike Evans. You have Gronk out there. Sometimes they roll Cameron Brate. You have 2 or 3 running backs. We've seen other teams that have like a committee approach because and they're trying to spread it around, and it doesn't feel like they have incredible offensive continuity. Last year, for all of Jameis Winston's faults, he went out there and he knew he had Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, and that's where he was pretty much forcing the ball down. We'd occasionally run just to hope that the defense remembered that we were capable of running, and that was about it. And this year, they just have so many things, are they trying? And to me, you have to wonder, too, they have some big personalities out there now, too, that they're trying to force feed and get involved. One of Brady's interceptions, at least, was a ball they were trying to force into Antonio Brown. They tried at the goal line to force the ball into Mike Evans, even though he has not done much against Marshawn Lattimore in several games. So,
did you see the Marshawn Lattimore tweet?
Yes, he played him well. He did well on the field. This was a really critical game for the Bucs in their seeding hopes and everything. They have now been swept by New Orleans, so it's not just that New Orleans won a half game in front. They won a game and a half in front. And what they were talking about, New Orleans has a much more favorable schedule down the stretch than Tampa Bay does. There's something that doesn't look right. We had wondered, is it too much putting Antonio Brown into the mix here? That was the reason I thought they didn't do it preseason. Now,
yeah,
they have a lot of talent, but a lot of talent we've seen before doesn't always coalesce into wins. But their defense looked terrible too. Their defense had been incredible, and they didn't look like they could figure out or stop anything last night.
Yeah, that's why for the most part I'm going to throw the game away. I don't believe that AB came in here and immediately destroyed this team. Maybe he did, but I'm not going to go that route yet. And I know that's not what you're saying, but that's kind of what everybody was joking about on Twitter yesterday. It was a bad game for sure. I've been on the train that I've said multiple times this year, I don't think Brady's been as good as everybody's giving him credit for. Matter of fact, I know you'll may remember this because you're in the Discord channel, but me and Ricky were going back and forth about this when they were playing my quarterback, one in my heart, Justin Herbert, where Tom Brady, again, did not look good. And then he had, I think, 4 touchdowns in the second half to end up leading him back to winning that game. But outside of that third and fourth quarter, he had not looked good. He's not looked good since last year. He really hasn't. I don't know if that's just – it's got to be him just getting older. And I'm not saying that he's been bad. I do agree that having all these weapons here is just hurting him. We kind of talked about that with the Browns as well. Sometimes you just have too many weapons, and you've got to try and force them the ball. I will say with the way that Godwin and Evans are, I do not think that one of them is going to really kind of be the ones who open their mouth and say anything in the media. Both those guys, regardless of when they have or haven't been getting the ball, have usually been pretty quiet about that. So even when Jameis Winston was only targeting one or the other, there was a couple times last year Mike Evans was doing nothing for 3-4 weeks and then would have that big game. So I don't think either one of them will say something. I'm going to trust that AB's not going to say anything yet. But I think we just saw what we've talked about all year, that the Saints were just a better team. None of us were those. None of the three of us, and you, me, and Dennis, when we did our projections for these teams, were that big on the Buccaneers. We all had the Saints winning. We all had the Saints going to the playoffs. I think the Buccaneers are a good team, but they're not a great team. The Saints have the pieces on offense and defense to be a great team. I think they are just putting it together. I think they came out there with a little bit more extra motivation yesterday, and we saw it. And again, once the Bucks got punched in the mouth, they just did not seem to be able to get up. I don't know if that was a Brady thing, coaching thing. We'll see if they can bounce back next week. But I'm gonna say for now, I'm not panicking on any of them. Really, the only one I like on the team anyway is Chris Godwin, so that's not saying much for me. But I'm not panicking if I own any of them. We're just kind of, let's see what they can do next week. That will do it for us today. That's all of the games from the Sunday slates there of Week 9. Again, we've got what Matt would say is, I guess, technically classified as a football game here against the Patriots and the Jets. We'll see if it's any good. Again, Damian Harris, I know you're listening, bro. You're about to go out there and warm out. Just 12 points, man. That's all I'm asking. 12 points. I don't care if it's, whatever. 40 yards on 6 catches, whatever. Well, that's not even going to be 12 points, so that's going to be 10. So definitely hit me 12. Again, that's not my strong suit, but just anything, man, please. 12 points. I'll send you flowers. I'll send you chocolate, whatever you need. I need 12 points. Please.
All he heard was 40 yards on 6 catches, and he consider it done.
Yeah, it's like, you got it, and throws up. Like, no, wait, come back. I need 2 more. Yeah, I swear. If he gets 10 points tonight, I'm going to lose my shit, because this will be the 3rd loss in a row that I've suffered by less than 6 points, and it's going to hurt my heart a lot. I don't know if I can handle this much longer. But enjoy the game tonight if you're watching it and you have players going in and you need to win. Hopefully you guys can pull out your wins tonight. Me and Matt will be back tomorrow to recap the Jets and Patriots and talk probably some waiver wire, though I feel like it's gotten to the point where there's really not much available, but we'll talk whatever we can. Maybe we'll throw in some Mandalorian talk tomorrow. I don't know. If we need to buy some time, we can do that tomorrow instead of Thursday, but we will see you guys tomorrow.